Shabbat Shalom everyone, and welcome to another online sermon. This week our community takes another step forward towards normality with our first Shabbat morning service in Shul since the lockdown began nearly 4 months ago. There are a few differences in the service because of the lockdown restrictions, and one of them occurs towards the end. In order to reduce our time in Shul, we will be starting the service at Shochin Ad and omitting the Rabbanan Kaddish at the beginning of the service. We will be making up this lack by reintroducing Pitum HaKetoret after Ein Kelokenu at the end of the service, since the Rabbanan Kaddish can be said after Pitum HaKetoret. I thought it would be helpful to have a look at Pitum HaKetoret and understand what it is all about. Pitum HaKetoret is a recipe for the making of Ketoret, the incense which was burned in the temple which the Jewish people built in the desert after they left Egypt, and then later in King Solomon's temple on Temple Mount in Jerusalem. The passage lists the different spices that were ground and combined in particular proportions to make the Ketoret blend, which is one of the Torah commandments. This reading is treated with great reverence and is said to have mystical powers associated with it. It is actually there in the Chief Rabbi Siddur after Ein Kelokenu, and reinstating it in our service makes what we do that bit better. In fact, many communities say it every day as part of the recitation of Korbanot, the reading of the daily order of temple offerings, which comes near the start of the service. Pitum HaKetoret is followed by a reading of the first lines of the psalms that the Levites sang each day in the temple. Why is Pitum HaKetoret so important? There are many explanations, and I would like to focus on a midrash which gives us an insight into Ketoret. The midrash says that the temple is the cosmos in miniature, and that details of the temple correspond to the details of creation. Thus, the curtains which formed the roof of the original temple in the desert correspond to the heavens, which are described in Baruch Nafshi, Psalm 104, as being stretched out by God like a curtain. Another curtain in front of the ark separates between the Holy of Holies and the rest of the temple, rather like the curtain in front of our ark in Shul. And this is compared to the sky, which in Genesis chapter 1 likewise is said to have made a separation between the upper and lower waters on the second day of creation. The spices of the Ketoret, the incense, correspond to the plants created on the third day of creation. The lights of the menorah correspond to the lights of the sun and the moon. The cherubim on the ark, which had wings, correspond to the birds created on the fifth day of creation, and so on. Since the Ketoret corresponds to something that came fairly early on in the order of creation, we might think that it is distant from the spirituality brought to creation by day 6 when people were made. Yet, the holiest service in the temple was the Ketoret. Unlike the animals which were offered on the outer copper altar, Ketoret was offered every day on the inner golden altar, and it was Ketoret which was offered once a year on Yom Kippur in the Holy of Holies. What was so special about the Ketoret? Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch comments that plants have a special significance in Judaism. The plants did not just exist or function, they grew, each following the dictates of its own species to reach its full potential. Thus, the third day of creation was epoch-making. It introduced the idea of following our own path by our own effort, of realizing our own God-given destiny. Perhaps this was why Ketoret was so holy. This combination of plants symbolized all the different people in the Jewish community and perhaps in the world as a whole, each pursuing their own goal, yet combining their differences and becoming more and more spiritual as a group. The burning of the Ketoret symbolized our wish to join with God, who appeared on Mount Sinai and on the temple altar as a flame. The transformation of the Ketoret into an ethereal, untouchable, fragrant smoke which curled upwards through the air of the temple to the area beyond it, symbolized our aim to transform ourselves into people who are entirely spiritual, who ascend heavenward, and who bring pleasantness to God and to the world. Sadly, without our temple, which we mourn at this time of year in particular, we cannot create or burn the Ketoret, but we keep its memory and its message alive by reading about it. Every time we read these beautiful words, we are reminded of our opportunity and duty to understand who we are, to realize our potential fully, and to join with others in this sacred endeavor to bring nachas, satisfaction and delight to God and to others through our own self-realization. This task is singularly appropriate now as our community life journeys towards reintegration after the fragmentation of lockdown. For many, the social restrictions have afforded an extra opportunity for introspection and thought about who we are and what we should become, although in truth this can be done and should be done regularly. It is perhaps not an accident that the Pittu passage continues with an account of the songs sung on different days in the temple. As much as each person has their life goal, so each day brings its particular challenges and opportunities. On a smaller scale, each day offers us time to grow in our own way for the hours allotted to us, using the adversity, happiness, mood, and circumstances we find ourselves in to flourish spiritually. This cheering notion actually finds an echo in our parashah's painstaking account of all the 42 stops that the Jewish people made on their journey through the desert. We need to remember that the most epic journey consists of little steps. Pittu reminds us of the gift of self-discovery and self-realization that can take place over a lifetime and needs to take place every single day. This spiritual need is so fundamental to humanity that many people are emotionally better off when they have duties which they fulfill. Conversely, unemployment can bring not only poverty but also psychological distress. Tragically, the lockdown threatens this on a massive scale. As the physical health threat recedes for the time being at least, the damage to the economy is not yet fully apparent and will probably become so over the next few months. Our Jewish response to unemployment, like the threat itself, is double. Regarding financial need, those who are able to do so dig deep and help friends and the community at large. And for all those in that hard situation, Pittu reminds us that every person every day has the power and the duty of self-realization. It is not our earning power or the status of our job that defines us, but how best we bring our spiritual gifts to fruition. Like a mighty oak, a graceful willow, or a humble blade of grass, we can all become the best we can be, irrespective of the financial turmoil around us, and perhaps even because of it. In fact, the Zohar says that reading Pittu brings blessing for prosperity, health, peace, and atonement. As the community returns to Shul and resumes this ancient tradition of reading Pittu, may we all merit to celebrate its blessings together. Thanks for listening. Shabbat Shalom.